You're listening to the Dare to Love podcast with your hosts, Sonica Tinker and Christian Peterson, founders of LoveWorks.
Welcome to the Dare to Love podcast with LoveWorks for You. I'm your host today, Sonica Tinker, and I'm going to be talking about a powerful tool for shifting yourself out of negative moods, negative ways of approaching situations and relationships, and shifting it over into something more positive, lighthearted, empowering. And this is a tool that is fast, easy, and sometimes just one word can, a one-word shift can completely alter your experience. So today I'm going to be talking about the tool of reframing. So reframing basically means putting a different frame around a situation. And specifically, positive reframing is really when you take any undesirable behavior or trait or situation and you put it in a more empowering, positive light. You give it a positive intention. So you shift your point of view around the same situation from a negative orientation to a positive orientation. So we're going to be sharing with you here in this podcast some very quick and easy ways to change your mood about something. So here is the first example. Whenever you find yourself saying, I have to do something, right? I have to go to work. I have to take out the garbage. I have to do the laundry. I have to have quality time with my kids, whatever it is, right? I have to help my kids with homework. Is instead of saying I have to shift it over to saying I get to. A lot of times when we think we have to, we're not necessarily present to the possibility in something, or, even the goodness inherent in it. Like, how instead of I have to take out the garbage, I get to take out the garbage. It kind of moves me back into power and choice. And for me, actually, I notice it moves me a little closer to appreciation. That I live an abundant enough life to have garbage to even be able to take out, that what was packaged in that garbage was food, right? That I get to eat. I have an abundance of it. So you shift it over. I have to go to work. I get to go to work. I get to make a difference at work. I get to make money that allows me to live the life that I want to live. So that is an example of a reframe, right? You're reframing it from a have to a get to. Another one of my favorites, which is kind of along the same lines, right? I have to, I get to, is shoulds to coulds. So the second we think we should do something, we actually put ourselves in reaction against the should, right? I should go exercise, right? Can be an example. I should, what's another example here? I'm trying to think of one here on the spot. Exercise is one of mine. I should practice piano. So when we change it over to a could, right? Well, I could exercise, I could practice piano, or I could not. The second I move it from a should to a could, again, I restore my ability to choose in that moment. And I get to actually drop down underneath and look to see, what do I really want to do? Do I want to exercise? Do I want to practice piano? Or do I want to do something else? And it moves me out of being in reaction and supports me to drop down into being more in creation or more choice and moving in the direction towards what I really want to create. So that is a very powerful reframe right there, shoulds to coulds. And I got to say, I have mostly eliminated the word should from my vocabulary. And it has been quite beneficial for me to do that because, again, it keeps me knowing that I'm always at choice about what it is I do, and it allows me to connect more with what I really want. So you might play with that one. Here's another example of a reframe. instead of saying, I got to make this happen, I got to force this to happen, kind of bringing in this sense of having to control or force and take action and make something happen, you shift your terminology over more into, I'm going to allow this. I'm going to allow this to show up for me. I'm going to allow this to happen. I'm going to invite it in. One of my favorite ways to express that is I'm going to call this in. I'm going to call in this experience that I want to have, or I'm going to call in this, this situation that I would like to have be changed, or this positive, desirable behavior that I'm really wanting, or some really wonderful vacation, right? I'm going to call it in. I'm going to invite it in. And that tends to soften us, to move us out of control, kind of this masculine, active place, more into this softer, more feminine, receptive place. And sometimes it's appropriate to force and, kind of effort at making something happen. And sometimes it can be even more beneficial and more productive for us to kind of drop down into a more feminine, receptive place. And from that more receptive, allowing place, we can sometimes see openings and possibilities and invite support that we might otherwise miss if we're so busy trying to make stuff happen. Here's another example of a reframe. Anytime you're encountering a problem, right? When we think of something as a problem or as a conflict, we have a tendency to go in with resistance, right? What's kind of in the background of, a lot of makeups that we have in the background of problems or situations or conflicts is that they're bad. They shouldn't be. I'm not going to get what I want. It's not going to turn out. This is a big issue. It's a potential deal breaker. You just shift the words from problem or conflict into opportunity. Like, this is actually an opportunity or a gift, right? It's going to bring something positive to us. It's going to allow us to co-create something even better. We're going to get to be even stronger in the face of whatever it is we're facing. And just shifting again the orientation from this conflict and problem to, this is an opportunity and a gift. And it has us, just that shift in wording can move us from resistance more into a willingness to step in and to meet it or to use it, to turn it into a benefit. And being open to exploring what possibilities might arise from this situation that we're finding ourselves in, so that we're resisting it less and kind of more open to experiencing whatever it is that is facing us in the moment. And really, I'll just add one more piece about that, which is, for me, it's, sometimes I like to have the makeup that, or the belief that I'm going to use this, I'm going to use whatever is showing up here to be an even better version of myself, right? So that it's I could even shift a problem and a conflict from being this bad thing to, really this is this great thing that's happening for me, and I'm going to even be a better person or create something even better as a result of what's showing up. Another example of a reframe that I've been finding myself using a lot more lately is that we have a tendency sometimes to step into pessimism when we think of our current situation as being a permanent one. If you're, living with your parents, for example, and you don't really want to do that, when you think of it as a permanent situation, or like you're going nowhere fast, if you don't have a job or you don't have a relationship, for example, same thing. If you think of it as a permanent state, you have a tendency to get more depressed or, negative at the thought of that. And when you shift it over, just kind of put the frame around it as being a temporary situation. You're temporarily unemployed. You're temporarily not in a relationship. You're temporarily having a difficult time with your partner. It's a temporary state, and it will shift and it will change over time. And just changing, again, that view, that approach, or changing your viewpoint from it being a permanent situation to a temporary one, can help you relax more into being where you are right now and making the very best of it, and not moving with it like, something awful is happening and will always be happening. Which brings us to the next reframe, right? How many of us, when we are engaged in conversation with our partners or with people in our lives that we love, or even with ourselves, right? We have a tendency to say something bad has always been this way. Our partner has always been late. Our partner always says no to sex. We're always having a really hard time with money. Anytime you use the word always, it's the same thing as kind of that permanent situation I was just speaking about before, right? It has this, it produces this mood of being stuck. It's always been that way. It's likely to always be that way. So you just change the word from always to sometimes. In my experience, nothing is always anyway, right? It really is always sometimes. Always sometimes. There's generally exceptions to whatever it is we're making generalizations about. So again, when we shift the wording from always to sometimes, we put a different frame around what we're speaking. Sometimes I'm the only one that takes out the garbage. It creates a little more room and space for something new to show up, and also for us to notice the places where we actually are getting what we want sometimes, when things really aren't always as awful as we think when we're in always thinking. All right, here's another reframe. We have a tendency to get impatient in our relationships, in our lives, right? We feel slow. Things are moving too slow. We feel stuck. And you can probably even feel that as I'm saying those words, with the mood that gets produced when you use that kind of languaging. So instead, another reframe to that, right? So you can create a whole different experience, is really, I'm making progress. I'm making steady progress. There are little shifts and steps that I'm taking all along the way. And in the end, that's going to result in a completely new experience and completely new set of results that I'm going for, completely new set of behaviors. So yeah, from I'm stuck, I'm feeling impatient, it's never going to change, I'm making progress. There are little progresses along the way that I can notice. Here's another really great reframe that we heard from a woman we were speaking with yesterday. She says, I'm one of those people where when I go on a vacation, I'm very clearly thinking ahead of time about all the things we're going to do, all the things we need to bring. I'm kind of proactively planning ahead about where we're going to go, what we're going to need. And that is a very different reframe than, what I have sometimes been called, right, which is controlling, right? So instead of seeing somebody as controlling or micromanaging, right, which again has this negative connotation associated with it, you can shift it over to, wow, you pay attention to detail. You're a proactive planner. You're really good at thinking ahead. Right? It puts a positive spin on what would otherwise be considered a negative characteristic or attribute. All right, here's another one of my favorite reframes, is endings. Instead of talking about endings, to talk about new beginnings. When we are ending something, our focus tends to be on what we're losing, on what we're going to be missing out on. Right? We tend to be looking backwards at loss and grief. And we can put a different frame around the same event that's happening and shift it over to that there's new beginnings. Like, yes, I'm ending this, if I'm selling my family home, for example, I'm ending a certain phase in my life, but I'm also opening myself up to some new phases, some new possibilities. I might be ending this job or ending this relationship, but I'm opening myself up to have a new relationship or to try out a whole different career, try something I've never tried before that maybe actually more expansive and produce more happiness and joy for me, more love for me than what I've experienced previously. So, same thing. Instead of focusing in on the past, focus more on what is going to be opening up by what I'm letting go of, and keep the focus on the new beginnings instead of on the endings and on everything you're losing. And here's the last reframe I'll talk about today, which is another pretty big one that I find makes a very huge difference, especially in my relationship world. And that is this one. Anytime we're in a fight, we have a tendency to think about it's you versus me, right? You're going to get your way or I'm going to get my way, right? It's your concerns or my concerns. I'm not going to get what I want and you are, or the other way around. And I really like shifting out of this whole me or you into us and we. Just even if, here's an example here. So if I'm saying I want to go on vacation to Tahoe and you don't want to go on vacation to Tahoe, instead of it's like, well, who's going to win, right? There's only one, we're either going to Tahoe or we're not. And I'm either getting what I want or you're getting what you want, but there's no way for us to both get what we want. Well, just even with that, to step into more of an us or a connected position of us or we both want to go on vacation and we want to go to Tahoe and we don't want to go to Tahoe. And just that, now I don't have to be the one arguing just for Tahoe, and you don't have to be the only one arguing for not Tahoe, but we can both kind of stand in each other's shoes as well. Some part of us doesn't want to go to Tahoe, and some part of us does want to go to Tahoe. What could we design that's going to give us the same experience of Tahoe, but maybe is it a little different place? Maybe we don't go to Lake Tahoe and we go to Lake Englebright, or we go to a different lake that we've never been to before. And we start to explore possibilities from this place of us and supporting both of us to get what it is we want, instead of fighting against each other like it's you or me. And that orientation has been particularly empowering in all kinds of ways. If you're in a long distance for a relationship, for example, which Christian and I were for a while, right? He was in Denmark, I was in California. It looked like, from this certain point of view, during this 2.5 years of this long distance relationship, that we were never going to, create a life together. He lived there, I lived here. And one of the things that we did to sort of create this bridge that was really empowering for both of us and kept us feeling more connected, even inside of this long distance relationship, is we just played with this idea that we lived in both Denmark and California, and we had families both in Denmark and in California. And we really loved both countries, and we really loved both of our houses, and we really loved both of our families. And just that notion of expanding to include each other by speaking in we had us feel like we weren't so far apart, and actually produced more peace and connection for both of us just in that languaging, until, of course, in the course of living, it sort of sorted itself out, where Christian ended up moving here to California and us getting married and creating a life here. So those are some examples of reframes where you just shift a simple word, and that can change your whole perspective about something and move you from feeling powerless and stuck and hopeless and small, sad, jealous, right? Can actually help move you from that powerless state into a more empowering, optimistic, positive one. So play with that. Words are powerful. Words really do create our experience internally. And if you're noticing yourself not feeling good, pay attention to the words that you're using and see if one of these ideas that we presented here with you today could be put to use to help shift your attention over into a new possibility and a new experience for yourself. Alrighty, that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining me. Hope you've gotten some value here out of this powerful tool called reframing. enjoy reframing your own negative experiences. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Dare to Love podcast with your host, Sonica Tinker and Christian Peterson, founders of LoveWorks. If you found this valuable, please hit the share button and share with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or your other favorite hangouts. You can find more about Sonica and Christian's work at loveworksforyou.com.